Hello everyone, welcome to my booktube channel. First of all, this is my first video if you cannot tell. I've never actually made a video talking about books before, so I'm going to try my hardest to just share the books that I've been reading lately. I am what many people would consider a new reader, so prior to 2019 I simply could not finish books. I owe a lot to the booktube community because if I hadn't discovered the types of books that I like to read, I feel like I would still be trying to find my way through Barnes & Noble. I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, oh, why don't I try to make a booktube video and just share with the girls the books that I've been reading, the books that I've been having so much fun with. I'll be talking about 3 books in this video. One of them is a 5-star read, so stay tuned. The first book I'm going to be talking about is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I know what you're gonna say, literally you're so late. I know. This is like a 2020 book. I read this with my bestie. We have kind of a long distance book club and honestly we had so much fun. Let me tell you what this book is about. The Midnight Library follows our main character, Nora Seed, who is just like not doing well. She's in her mid-30s. She's broke, self-isolated. Her friends won't talk to her. Her family won't talk to her. She hates her job. Always like thinking about the past, always thinking about like the million other lives she could have lived, if only she would have done this thing or followed that other thing. Can you relate? Is this a universal experience? The thing about this book is that our main character, Nora, like her crisis is so bad that she ends up like unaliving herself. So she ends up finding herself in between life and death at a place called the Midnight Library. And in the Midnight Library, there's a book for every single life she could have lived. I would say the biggest theme in this book is regret and later self-acceptance. The main character's biggest pain is regret, which I'm not gonna lie, at a certain point, like actually at a lot of points, it just felt a little fictional. So let me just tell you like the few regrets that she has. One of her regrets is about quitting professional swimming, right? Like she was on a path for being like an Olympic swimmer, but one day she just quits because she kind of like couldn't take the fact that she was doing it for her dad. Then another regret she has is about like quitting the band that she was in with her brother just as they were about to get like a record label, right? So she just couldn't take the stage fright, the anxiety, which, you know what, sure, no problem, sure. Me personally, big mistake. Big mistake, but you know what, no problem. So her regrets range from like leaving her ex, studying philosophy, not moving to Australia with her bestie. Like the main theme of this book is like all the regrets that one person can have in a lifetime. Because our character is able to experience living and walking through like all of the different lives that she could have lived, she ends up coming to the conclusion that the life that is worth living the most is the life that she's currently living. That's not a spoiler, you kind of like get the vibe early on, but like, you know, basically that's the point of this book. Your best life is the best life you're currently living because you're in it now. You made the decisions that led you here, therefore you can decide to like do better for yourself, right? I think what this book is trying to do is take the most common regrets that people have and use the main character to explore each one of them. So whoever is reading the book can at least like relate to some of these regrets. I'm gonna be honest, like this is one of those books that like you can't analyze too much and you can't like critically think too much about because then like your reading experience is ruined. I had to turn off my critical thinking brain to like really enjoy this book because like at the very beginning I was like, oh, Olympic swimmer, oh, rock star, oh. I had to stop doing that like really quickly because I was like, you know what, there's a lot in this book that I feel like I am going to enjoy and I want to enjoy, so let me turn my brain off and just join the ride. Let me join the ride, let me sit in the back seat, you tell me the story, I'm listening. I feel like at the end of the day, the message of regret and self-acceptance is one that I feel is very important for people to get. And if what the author is trying to do is make it as accessible as possible, then I think that's great. And, you know, this book really did make me realize a few things about my life and the people around me, which I'm grateful for. This book had an impact on me, which I was not expecting. Like I mentioned, read this with my bestie. It was just so much fun. Like, buddy reading this with her was so special. I remember telling her, oh, I thought this book could really mean something to someone. Like, if you give this book to the right person at the right time, it could help them get out of a deep depression. So I was like, you know what? I'm down with it. And I like it. I give this book 4 stars, mainly because this book taught me like how important it is to stay in the present, stay in the now, and just being like proactive about like changing the things that you don't like about yourself. Like I said, I had to turn off my brain for a bit and just kind of like go with it. But you know, I do recommend it. I think this book would be great for people who are not pretentious about what they read. It's just a cute story. I feel like anybody who's like not taking it too seriously will like it. And yeah, little chicken soup for the soul type of situation. On to the next one. My next read was Catalina by Karla Cornejo Villavicencio, which I gave 4 stars to. But now that I really think about it, maybe I should have given it 4.5 stars. In this novel, we follow our main character, Catalina, through her senior year at Harvard. This is very much like a slice of life type of book. But what's interesting about this book is that our main character is undocumented. And unlike you, who has no idea what to do after college, she really can't do anything after college because she can legally work in the United States. So Catalina is originally from Ecuador. Shout out to my people. And she ends up moving from Ecuador to New York City to go live with her grandparents after her biological parents passed away. This book is somewhat of a campus novel. It's a cousin of like Elif Batuman's The Idiot. But what's interesting about this book is that it's so specific to the undocumented experience and what it's like to grow up in a country that feels like your own but that won't legally claim you as one of their own. Our main character is so funny. She is sharp, she's hella woke, like 2010s woke. Very much like Latin American, like soft on socialism type of girl. This book is set in the 2010s, so if you're a 2010s Tumblr girl, like this book will speak to you, whether you like it or not. This book will speak to you. I do have to be honest, I was very excited to read this book. First of all, I'm Ecuadorian myself, as I already mentioned, and I have never come across an Ecuadorian character in a book that's written in English. Like, no one that I know of or have researched for this video has written from the like Ecuadorian who moves to America POV. So there were like specific things that meant so much to me. The power of representation. Like, there's a specific part where Catalina and her grandmother are in the kitchen talking and they're making empanadas de viento. Like, that is so specific. And you want to hear something that is like even more specific. They talk about like adding sugar on top, which is like, once again, so specific to like how you would eat that in like certain regions of like our country. I've just never had the experience of having something mentioned in a book that's so specific to how I grew up and like my culture. And like, I'm sure somebody has written about it and I just don't know. But like in English, I just haven't seen it yet prior to this book, right? On top of that, like the experience of being raised by your grandparents is so specific and one that I also relate to. So I just loved to read this book and like see myself in different ways. This book was so important to me because of what it says about what it means to be American and like, I guess, the identity crisis that a lot of people have when they move here at a very early age. I'm sure many people can relate to that. I love a campus novel, so I was down to read this book like regardless of like whether it was going to be incredible, life-changing and whatnot. I just thought this book was so special and it could mean so much to so many people, and there's just something that I always take into consideration when I'm reading a book. I have to be honest. I have to mention this though. I'm so sorry, I'm not going to spoil anything, But the last part, I believe this book is split into like 4 parts. No shade, no tea, but I would not have ended this book that way. Like I like this book so much, and I respect the author for like doing what she did. But you know, the places this book went to, like in that like last chapter, I was like, I don't know. But you know what? I respect it. If you're into Latin American politics, if you're like second-gen immigrant, if you're maybe undocumented yourself, if you were a Tumblr girl, if you suffer from depression, like I would really recommend it. This was actually my first read of 2025, so I'm, you know, just started off the year with like a beautiful book. So here you go, Catalina by Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. Fun book. So the third book I read was actually an audiobook. I know for a fact that this book will be one of my top 3 favorite books of the year. I read Jon M's memoir called Viewfinder. Okay, officially the title is Viewfinder, the memoir of seeing and being seen. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Jon M is the film director of Crazy Rich Asians, Step Up 2, one of the Justin Bieber concert films, but like most recently the film adaptation of Wicked. So in this memoir, we follow Jon through his childhood, growing up in Silicon Valley, most specifically Los Altos. We follow him through his discovery of filmmaking and storytelling. His family has a restaurant in Los Altos that like plays a big role in the story of his life and like what it means to like succeed. And what really stood out the most about this book is Jon's perseverance and deep appreciation for his family's story. Really like how important it is to tell stories that represent people in underrepresented communities. Crazy Rich Asians was a historic movie that had like its first all Asian cast, and it was like the first theatrical release in like I don't know how many years, like at least like 20 to 40 years. Like maybe some people take that for granted now, but like back in like 20s, what, 17, 18, like that was new. That was like revolutionary. Really like hearing from the person who made that happen was just so interesting. Another thing that stood out to me in this book was Jon's perseverance and like deep appreciation for his family's story. Jon to me appears as like truly an earnest person who like wants people who work in the film industry to have fair chance at like succeeding at what matters, which is like telling impactful stories. There is so much in this book about the effects of Silicon Valley in Hollywood. I really enjoy like all of the inside and like low-key gossip on like this Silicon Valley mentality of growth at all costs and like the ramification of like having that permeating through Hollywood. Honestly, like really made me want to cancel my Netflix subscription, like I'm not gonna lie. This book was so sweet at times and just so interesting. This book gave me a like deep appreciation for what it means to release a film. The amount of hoops that you have to jump through to just get a film approved by a studio. Actually, fun fact, I recently started watching this studio on Apple TV, which kind of like talks about the same thing, and you know, the BS that's like going on in Hollywood right now with, you know, this emphasis on having like stupid franchises. And it's just so interesting to hear the take from the people who work in the film industry. If you're into film, I think you would really like this book. Obviously, this book made me appreciate what a pleasure and joy it really is to go sit at a movie theater and like watch a movie in community. Side note, but like I rediscovered my love for going to the movie theater last year. It's like the one thing that stands out to me as one of the best parts of 2024, and I really don't want to let that go. Like I want to try to go to the movies at least once a month and like really give my money to the stories that matter. Honestly, like we simply cannot let these streaming services win. Like this is like the thing that Jon talks about so much, like how important it is to just support those theatrical releases. I could go on and on about this book. The audiobook was so good. It was read by Jon. At its core, it's a love letter to his family, all the challenges that they went through to open their family restaurant, maintain the restaurant, and like what their version of success versus like Jon's early version of success differs. It's just such an interesting book. There's a lot about what it means to be a storyteller and the responsibility that one has to tell stories with integrity. If you're a creative of any kind, you will love this book. If you're a first-gen American, you're trying to make it in a creative industry, you will love this book. I respect Jon M so much, and it's because of this book. I will watch every single one of his movies, like in the theater, and it's because of this book. I gave this book 5 stars because it was just everything to me. So interesting, so much fun gossip. It just did not disappoint me at any point. So, you know, if you're into film, why not give this a read? So those were the 3 books I read recently. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to this point, I really cannot thank you enough. I had so much fun making this video. I had so much fun writing this video. I love talking about books, so I really hope that I'm able to do this more often. If you have read any of these books or you're planning to read one of these books now that I've talked about them, I'm so curious to know your thoughts, and I hope I get to see you soon. Thank you once again. Bye.